Okay, so today's video is a tour of the hydronic system that I have connected to the boiler you saw in the last video. So to start things off, the two lines that you saw in the boiler room, they come here. This side here is the supply. I put boiler drains or sediment faucets on either side. This is one of the lowest points of the boiler, and if I ever need a water sample, or want to put in a chemical or pump glycol in or something, I can do them through these drains. It's really, really easy. There's a couple valves here so I can isolate the boiler from everything else. You're going to excuse the way the basement looks. This house is 110 years old. The basement is really not been touched. So I have the lines go up at a 90 and they come all the way across. They chase all the way down across the basement roof or ceiling. Now this is the supply line. I have an air bleed right here. It's just best practice, maybe not necessary, but it's there's an air bleed there. And if you follow the supply, it goes through this electric boiler. It's a 28 kilowatt. That is not enough to keep my family living here if the outdoor boiler were to fail, but it is enough to keep everything from freezing and give me that type of protection, so that's good. So the supply line goes into the boiler and out of the boiler, and then here I have a bit of a bypass, so I can open or close these valves here, and that would either make and I could open this one here. That would either make the water go this way and skip everything, or like in winter now, this valve is open, this one's closed, which makes that primary loop run into my furnace. I have a radiator in there, and the fan turns on based on a thermostat, and then it comes back. And after the boiler, it goes into this panel. So on this panel, how far do I gotta back up? It goes in a primary loop and then back to the outdoor boiler. But this panel is somewhat complex, so what it does is the very first takeoff set here, this pump here, goes to an indirect hot water tank and comes right back. The second takeoff, kind of hard to see, it's behind some pipes. That one goes into this flat plate here. The flat plate's there because what's on the other side of that system is my house is 3 stories tall, and I have floor heating all the way up in the attic, a couple towel racks on the second floor heat there as well. So because it's higher than the boiler, it needs to be separated. We'll go into that system in a little bit more detail in a second. I have a dirt separator here. About once a month or so, I usually just pull off the cap down there, open that little red valve into a pail, just for a couple seconds. It comes out kind of grimy and black, and then it is clear again, and then I got all the sediment out of there. It is magnetic, and it collects all sorts of junk. And then this is the return line back to the outdoor boiler. But we'll go back to where we were talking about the flat plate. So it pumps through the flat plate 24/7, at least in winter. And here I have another primary pump for a loop here. I'll back up so you can see the whole setup there. So it just pumps in this primary loop pretty much all the time in terms of winter anyway. There is an air eliminator there. There is a backflow preventer and a pressure reducing valve here to make sure that that part of the system is never shy on pressure or anything if there was a leak or something like that, I guess. And then on the bottom here I have another dirt separator. This one is not magnetic, but it is a closed loop system, so really nothing comes in through there. And because it's closed, I also have this expansion tank. So this system has 2 pumps. The pump on the top goes to a manifold that feeds a couple towel racks and a couple staple up type floor systems. So the PEX is just underneath the wood subfloor. And then this second takeoff here goes to the attic. So that is probably 25 feet above where I'm standing now. There's just 3 loops up there. Again, it's staple up. It's actually under carpet, but it works really well. So that is a quick summary of what's going on here. I did want to talk about this part here a little bit more. So this unit is my furnace. It's got the rad in there for the hot water. But when I flip these valves over here, which I do for summer, it's just a manual turn of the valves, and then the hot water is no longer going through there if my outdoor boiler is still running. But this thing is also my air conditioner. So that is all how that works. I did put a switch on the electric boiler. It's typically in the on position, but there is no power going through the boiler. I have the boiler set pretty low. If you can see that, it's set to about 130 degrees, but since that light switch simulates a thermostat, and the boiler temperature I have is, it's already about 175, 170, somewhere in that neighborhood. So the electric boiler doesn't do anything unless something fails on the outdoor boiler. So that's just a really nice safety to have. Good idea. I think that's it for this portion of it. There's a little bit more hydronics in the shop, but that's pretty simple. It's just another indirect hot water tank and a mixing valve for a floor heat system. I guess I didn't talk about the mixing valve. So this pump here, I don't think I touched on either of these two pumps actually. This pump here goes into this Kitech line here. You don't see a lot of that anymore, but this was here and it's buried underground, so not much I can do about it unless I want to dig up the yard. But it works fine. So this loop here goes to the shop, underground, through this little channel right here. Yeah. And this pump here is a little bit more complex looking. It has an adjustable mixing valve here. So it mixes the water because you don't want to put water hotter than 120 into a concrete floor. This is for my garage, so it mixes the water down to about 95 degrees or so. And yeah, it operates off a thermostat. And then I guess control-wise, won't go into detail here, but this is a 6-zone pump controller. You can see all the 6 different zones that I have hooked up to it. The flat plate, the indirect hot water tank, the garage, attic, the closed loop pump, and the shop pump. So whatever, I can turn pumps on and off through that if I want. And thermostats are also connected to that to do it automatically. Okay, so I thought I would actually show you the shop anyway. I'm not thrilled about this part. Here I haven't changed anything or done any work. This is just how it came. But I'll still explain how it works. So that pump we saw in the house, that's about probably 50 feet away from here, pumps to the shop and comes through this line right here. This line has a primary loop as well, so it just goes there and then back to the house. But off of this line I have one pump here. This pump pumps straight up. I actually don't use this very well. I don't think it works very well. It actually goes to what's called a Chinook. Chinook is that thing right there. So there's a fan underneath that radiator type thing. And it's supposed to actually push air upwards, and then it goes along the ceiling and would technically drop down the walls or whatever. But I don't use it for that. The floor heat does plenty. And then additionally, there's another pump here, just like in the house for the garage. There's a mixing valve that's adjustable. This one is also at around 95-degree water temp, something like that. And it pumps into here and then into this manifold here, which pumps through the lines in the floor. So that is a simple version. But I guess at the same time, the primary loop portion of it does curl around. This is the part I don't like. And it actually goes through this indirect hot water tank before it goes into here. So it actually comes from the house very first, through this line right here, and then through the indirect hot water tank, and then back, and then into that part before it goes back to the house. So if I got to do it again, or I guess I can, but if I ever do it again, I'll have a separate pump going to the indirect hot water tank instead of it just running full time. But it does the trick, and whatever. I haven't bothered to change it yet. It works fine. So that is that. Yeah, okay. Hopefully that gives you a better explanation.